Hello guys, it is Grim Reaper 1312 666, better known as Nahilus, with my Wednesday upload, and you guessed it right, a story of time and forgiveness, the next part. This fanfic is incredibly long per chapter, so I need to cut them up a little bit. The parts from now on will just be like 20-30 minutes, so you can hear them easily, more easy, and it's a little bit better to cut to. Okay, let's enjoy yourself with Story of Time and Forgiveness, Chapter 1, Part 2. Luna found Prince Blueblood's chambers to be nearly as lavish as her own. Everything about the room was tastelessly extravagant. Every rug was fine, every golden surface was 24 carats, every piece of wooden furniture was agar wood, and covered in intricate dance and patterns. It was obvious how he chose to spend his monthly stipend. "I'm sorry, my chambers are a bit of a mess," said Prince Blueblood. He sat at an antique-looking writing desk, quill and parchment at the ready. "If I'd known you were coming, Your Majesty, I wouldn't have given my cleaning staff the night off. Nor my guard, for that matter. Now, what is it you wish to discuss?" Luna let out a thin sigh. This was not going to be easy. "Tonight's conference, if that's all right." "But of course!" Blueblood lifted his quill to the paper, a relieved smile on his face. "Now, if I'm not mistaken, the second item on the agenda was whether or not to grant a sovereignty to the colony of Azenia. That was the second topic of discussion, yes." Luna walked over to the window next to Blueblood's desk and drew the curtains open with a shimmer of magic, taking a moment to gaze at her sky. It was not the pristine expanse of heaven she expected. The stars over Ponyville were marred by clouds. "But first, I would like to discuss your outburst, for that is a topic that warrants discussion above all others." Blueblood's face fell. "Oh, please don't go to the trouble." Luna opened the window up. A soft breeze poked at Blueblood's mane and pulled the edges of his parchment. "Prince Blueblood, your reaction to Prince Palladium's story was quite telling. You used the royal Canterlot voice on accident. You must have felt a great deal of anguish. I was rather surprised you could use it at all." Blueblood adjusted his bow tie, sweat lining his brow. "Yes, well, it's a talent that I rarely get a chance to—" "We don't need to talk about this, Your Grace. Just know that I deeply regret my behavior and that it will never happen again." "I didn't come here to remind you, Prince Blueblood. I only wish to help you. It's nothing you need to concern yourself with." Blueblood looked down at a blank sheet of parchment, a few drops of sweat falling onto the page. "For the most part, I have control over my voice." Luna gave Blueblood a knowing look. "For the most part?" "Yes, for the most part." Blueblood shoved the parchment and quill back into his desk, then searched fruitlessly for his handkerchief. His evening wear had no pockets. "That is to say, I rarely let my voice slip. The discussion you wish to have with me is entirely unnecessary." "I do not think that this is the case, Prince Blueblood. I think you should talk to Samponi about your problem, so that we may avoid such displays in the future." Luna took a seat in front of Blueblood and gave him a hopeful look, absent-mindedly tracing the carvings on his desk. "Now, at the conference you said that your situation was complicated, but these things rarely are. Why don't you—" "What exactly do you mean by such displays?" Blueblood leaned over his desk, a malicious look on his eye. Luna blinked. Had she offended him? "Well, if I may be perfectly frank, I thought your actions were quite extreme, for a lack of a better word. Of course, I completely Extreme? You thought my actions were extreme? Are you trying to imply something?" "Yes, Your Highness." Blueblood got up from his chair, closed the windows, and drew the curtains shut with a loud snap. "I mean to say that you are a hypocrite." "And why, may I ask, is that?" "Well, if you want to talk about extremity—" Blueblood turned to glare at Luna, his voice cold and quiet. "Look no further than the mare who tried to bring out paternal night just because she thought she wasn't getting enough attention." Luna balked at Blueblood's words. All she could do in reply was sputter indignantly. It was far more complicated than—" "Complicated? Are you sure? Because, you know, these sort of things rarely are." Blueblood turned away and briskly opened his chamber doors. "Now, I believe I've made myself clear. Get out." "I will not!" Luna slammed the doors shut with a flare of magic and loomed murderously over Blueblood. "How dare you bring my faults to light when you are so full of your own, to repay my compassion with the most ungrateful of silence! I will not subject myself to this blatant condescension. I do not condescend under the obvious guise of compassion. You will leave my quarters this instant." Luna scoffed. "You think you can order me out of your chambers when they are in my castle? The insolence!" She pounded her hoofs against the desk, her horn ablaze. "I am your princess. Mark my words, Prince Blueblood. You will suffer the consequences of—" "You may be my princess," Blueblood roared, "but I am still a prince, and these are my quarters, no matter whose castle they're in." With a flash of his horn, the chamber doors swung violently open, nearly tearing themselves off the hinges. "You will leave!" Luna wanted desperately to hit Blueblood. She wanted to wring his neck with her magic. She wanted to scream at him as loud as she could until he passed out bleeding from the ears, deafened by the sound of a true cosmic council mare's voice. But she couldn't. She already felt a touch of familiar darkness creeping into her heart. If she took this any further, she might fall prey to the nightmare force again, and she'd already come so close on so many occasions. Discord's return, Nightmare Night, that first cosmic council meeting where Scorpio called her a sniveling, weak-hearted little urchin before disavowing his alliance to her as that Equalus in Cassiopeia. Even on the night of the wedding reception, when she discovered that he had slept through an attack on her kingdom. No, she wouldn't allow herself to lose another 1,000 years. Instead, she marched out the door in a furious huff, not bothering to hide her anger from passerby, who had left their chambers to see what all the yelling was about. Trixie couldn't sleep. She didn't want to sleep. All she wanted to do was check out her script and leave. Sleeping should have been easy, though. Twilight's library was completely dark, save a bit of candlelight flickering from the top of the stairs. The house was mostly quiet as well, except for the sound of a quill scratching parchment. It reminded her of a few months she spent in poverty after the Ursa Minor incident, when she couldn't afford lamp oil and had to make do with wax candles instead. The reminder left Trixie resentful. She turned away from the staircase and pushed her face into the pillow, trying to ignore the candlelight and the quill scratching and all the other restless sounds. Twilight Sparkle! What kind of a name of a powerful magician is that? But Twilight Sparkle didn't make herself out to be a powerful magician. True, she was a this word is difficult. Fortitudinous unicorn. I don't believe this is a word. Unicorn. She did defeat an Ursa Minor single-handedly after all. In fact, she had many magical elements under her control, living or otherwise, and her studies could only give her more power. She was probably poring over some ancient text right now, learning all sorts of things well beyond Trixie's comprehension. At the same time, though, Trixie was kind of a doovy. She was socially awkward, she lived in a town called Ponyville, and she had no less than 3 different pets. She studied the magic of friendship. A soft thump came up from up the stairs. Something blocked the light of the candle. Did she just fall asleep at her desk? Trixie perked her ears. There was no stretching of the quill, no clattering of teacup and plate, no chair legs grating against the floor. The room was completely silent. Wait, no rain, no thunder? She crawled out of bed, muted her hoofsteps with a sound-cancelling charm, and crept across the floor as quickly as she could. Once she had found her wig, she vanished silently out the door. It wasn't until she got home that she realized what had been left behind. "I was only trying to help him, sister. I held out my hoof, and he rudely smacked it away." Luna stomped around her bedchambers, hot tears of anger burning her eyes. Her sister sat at the end of the bed, listening patiently. "Thou shouldst have heard him. What he said was treasonous." "Luna, please try to calm down." Celestia touched Luna's shoulder with the tip of her wing, halting the tirade. "Ranting and raving about Prince Blueblood isn't going to make you feel any better. Besides, Besides, it pains me to see you so angry." "I am not angry." Celestia cocked an eyebrow. "I speak the truth, sister." Celestia moved over to Luna's side and draped a long, tired wing across her sister's back, pulling her close. Luna leaned into her Celestia's touch with a weary sigh. "I'm just very frustrated. When Prince Palladium told his story, I was reminded of— Well, you're no doubt aware." Luna's eyes began to sting again. "I imagined myself in Prince Blueblood's place, and I felt sorry for him. Now I'm not sure what I feel." That was a lie. Luna knew exactly what she felt: impotence, despair, and a black, unholy rage. Still, those feelings would pass in time. There was no point revealing them. Celestia nuzzled Luna's cheek. "I know you only wanted to keep Prince Blueblood from making the same fatal mistakes you did. But sometimes a pony needs to make a mistake before he can learn. Of course, this does not mean Prince Blueblood will get away with his behavior." Celestia turned away from Luna, then yawned for several seconds. Luna frowned. It was unfair that Celestia had to listen to such petty concerns, especially when she was already so greatly encumbered. With her heavy eyelids and trembling wings, she looked as though she were about to fall asleep, and what kind of sister would Luna be if she were to deny Celestia the rest she deserved? Luna stepped out from beneath Celestia's wing, giving her a concerned smile. "Sister, I do not wish to burden you at so late an hour. What say I escort you back to your bedchambers, so you may retire? We may continue this conversation over breakfast." Celestia pulled herself off the ground, using Luna as a brace, her head resting affectionately on Luna's withers. "I can think of nothing I'd like more, little sister." The princesses smiled warmly at each other for a short while. Luna trotted over to the door to open it for Celestia, but just as she gripped the handle, she heard a great thump come from behind her, followed by another yawn. She turned around to see what was the matter. "Goodness, sister, you are even more—" Luna froze. A wave of frightened nausea constricted her throat. Celestia's fur fell from her face in loose, reddened clumps, cracks and sores covering the skin beneath. It was as though some fingers had seeped beneath the hairs on her head, and was now spreading down through her flesh, poisoning the rest of her body from the outside in. "Luna, what is my—" Celestia brought a hoof to her cheek. When she looked at it, she found that it was covered in blood. "My— Oh no!" She crumpled to the floor. "Sister!" Luna rushed to Celestia's side and took her head in her hoofs, gently stroking the parts of her mane that weren't falling out. She trembled like a foal, feeling weak and hot and cold all at once, more aware of her mortality than she'd been in thousands of years. She was right all along. It had finally happened, just as they were sure it never would. With some effort, Celestia brought her muzzle to Luna's ear and let out a feeble whisper. "Take a ladder." Twilight woke up in a very uncomfortable position. Her head was lying on a hard surface, and her spine felt like it had been dipped in her rubber cement. She peeled herself off her desk and found a black smear on the parchment beneath her, as well as a hoofprint right beside it. Not again. She slunk over to her dresser and looked at herself in the mirror. With her messy hair and blackened face, she looked like she'd spent the night in the Everfree forest. She whipped off the rest of the ink with a tissue, then tied her hair up with a white ribbon, hoping it would be enough to hide her cowlick. I didn't set the alarm clock. Pink Pie's going to be here any minute with her party supplies, and I'll have to— A delicious, hearty smell wafted from the kitchen. Twilight set down her brush, tightened her ribbon in her mane, and walked over to the top of the staircase. Is Trixie cooking me breakfast? When she looked over, she found that Spike was frying strips of hay bacon in a pan, standing on a chair so he could reach the stove top. There was already a large steaming plate of bacon on the kitchen table, along with Pee-wee, who was happily munching on the crumbs. Twilight smiled to herself. I should have known better. Good morning, Spike. Morning, Twilight. Hey, what happened to your friend from last night? Did she stay over? Spike gestured at an empty bed sitting near the bookshelves. Twilight shook her head. Believe it or not, that friend was actually Trixie in disguise. What? Spike glared at Twilight in disbelief. That was Trixie? Tell me you didn't set that bed up for her. He violently flipped the bacon in the pan, causing a few drops of oil to splash onto the table. Pewee dodged the grease with an angry squawk, then grabbed his bacon and flew up the stairs. Twilight trotted down the stairs and over to the bed. She tucked the blankets out of the bedspread, lined them up in the air, folded them all into a large bundle, and tossed them into a hamper beside Spike's bedroom. "It was raining pretty heavily, Spike. What else was I supposed to do? Gee, I don't know. Maybe just let her leave?" Spike hopped off his chair and snatched up the piece of bacon, tearing off a large chunk between his teeth. "Heck, I'd have forced her to walk home in the rain. I'd take pictures." As funny as that might be, I don't want to give Trixie a legitimate reason to hate me. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Spike walked back to the stove and shut off the burners. "Spike, what's with all this bacon?" Spike pulled the frying pan off the stove and slid the rest of the bacon onto the plate. Oh, Pinkie Pie came over here earlier and asked me to make some for the party. She said it was for a new cupcake recipe. She and Applejack are gonna bring over all the other ingredients." Twilight tilted her head. "Bacon cupcakes with apples? That sounds—" "Wait a second, Spike. Was Pinkie really here earlier this morning?" Spike pulled some dish soap out of the cabinet beneath the sink. "Yup." "And she didn't wake me up? You're welcome." He gave Twilight a tired glare, then pulled himself onto the counter with a grunt. "Let me help you with that." Twilight lifted up the chair by the stove and set it in front of the sink. "Thanks. Hey, before I forget, I saw a letter next to my bed this morning when I woke up. I must have coughed it up in my sleep. It's right there if you want to read it." Spike pointed towards the kitchen table. A letter with a golden seal sat right behind the bacon platter. Twilight opened it up and read the first line. "To my friend and savior, Twilight Sparkle." Twilight chuckled. "I think it's from Princess Luna." "Really? What's it say?" "Give me a second, Spike. I need to read it before I can tell you what it says." "To my friend and savior, Twilight Sparkle. It is my immense displeasure to inform you that every Alicorn in Canterlot has fallen fatally ill, not least of all my sister. By the time you read this, she will almost certainly have passed." Twilight stopped reading. She set the letter back down. Spike hopped out of his chair and walked over to the kitchen table, giving Twilight a look of vague concern. "What's the letter say? Something wrong?" "It's nothing. Just some ponies just trying to pull a sick joke on us. Trixie probably left it." "Huh, I guess she hates you anyway." Spike reached onto the kitchen table and grabbed the letter. "Spike, don't read it!" Twilight snatched the letter out of Spike's hands and held it above her, well out of his reach. "Oh, come on!" "No." Twilight shook her head. "It was just some twisted prank, that's all. No point letting Spike read it. Then again, for a prank it was written well. It also had a royal seal, which was difficult to forge. Spike, I think there's still some soot in the downstairs bathroom. Could you go clean it up? But, Spike, you know what's going to happen if you can't take proper care of Pewee?" After a few grumples of protest, Spike trudged into the bathroom and slammed the door behind him. Twilight returned to the letter. "To my friend and savior, Twilight Sparkle. It is my immense displeasure to inform you that every Alicorn in Canterlot has fallen fatally ill, not least of all my sister. By the time you read this, she will almost certainly have passed. I know naught of your sister-in-law's condition, though I suspect she is ill as well. Thankfully, there is a cure, and if you travel down to the deepest depth of the terrace, you will find it. A panacea, hidden away so that it may only be used in times of need. However, you and your friends will be unable to attain this cure on your own. The chaos found at those depths will exhaust you both physically and emotionally, leaving you largely unable to complete the challenges that lie in wait. The elements of harmony will be rendered powerless as well, which is why I did not send them to you. Instead of going by yourselves, you and the other spirits of harmony will be guided by those who have what is necessary to brave the perils of the terrace. Their power manifests itself thusly. They are seemingly unable to learn from their mistakes. Because of this, they will require your aid as much as you require theirs. My sister tells me that you have already met 7 of these individuals. You need only find 6. I have sent one of them to you already, and he is accompanied by a newly appointed agent of the Lunar Guard. These 2 have been taught the secrets of the terrace at the Panacea, as they are both tied to equestrian royalty. Find the other beings, traverse the terrace, and obtain the Panacea. You haven't any time to lose. Good luck, Princess Luna." It wasn't a prank. No pony would go these lengths for a prank. Twilight dropped the letter on the floor, fell into a chair, and held her head in her hoofs. A million questions ran through her mind. Why was this happening so suddenly? Who were the other guides? Where was Twilight supposed to find them? How were they supposed to get all the way through the terrace of all places? Why not being able to learn from your mistakes make you any better off down there? Could Princess Celestia really be dead? Twilight bolted out of the chair, shaking her head. I can't think like that right now. I need to find the others so we can figure out... Her train of thought was interrupted by a knock at the door. He was floating. It didn't feel like it, though. It felt like he was standing. But he must have been floating, because there was no floor to stand upon. There were no walls either. In fact, there were no ceilings, windows, or barriers of any kind. There was only the sky. A perfect stretch of forget-me-not blue dotted with bright snowy clouds. Woven into every one of these clouds were innumerable diamonds. They were fragmented and oddly shaped, some bigger than others, but they were all colorless. It seemed to be the only thing every diamond had in common. He reached out and felt the ones on the clouds closest to him, and found that each diamond was like a memory. He tapped an especially large diamond and felt a cold hoof stepping on his cheek. He touched an even larger diamond. A friend of his screamed insults at him, flecking his face with spit. He touched the biggest diamond he could find, and saw his lover turn to leave, her tail lashing at his face, stinging his lips. "Are all these really mine?" he asked. "No, they can't be. I only remember one of these, although I'd forgotten it until now." But how could he ever forget about such a large diamond? How could a painful memory fade away and then reappear as easily as it went? Where did it go while it was gone? Had it been here this whole time, waiting for him to make the choice that would bring him to it? He touched the smallest diamonds he could see. Downy feathers brushed against his leg, and he smelled several beautiful flowers whose names he didn't know. It wasn't his memory. So, this was The Story of Time Forgiveness, Chapter 1, Choice and Memory, Part 2. Hope you liked it. There is an addendum or author's note on this chapter at the ending, and it says, to learn more about the biological basis of magic in ponies, be sure to read Section 1 of Gloaming Glimmer's Sorcerological Compendium. I'm going to read that on my Friday reading. So, everyone who's interested in that stuff, you probably need it for this fiction. I'm gonna do it on Friday, before I upload the next part of this, so look forward to it. And I thank you very much for listening to me. Have a good evening. See ya!